Welcome to the Fearlessly Authentic Sash and Soul podcast, the show that goes beyond the stage, prioritizing a healthy mindset, overall well-being, and triumphs in the pageant journey. In each episode, we dive into the transformative power of embracing authenticity fearlessly.
From mindset mastery and self-care strategies to success stories that inspire, this podcast is your go-to guide for navigating the pageant world with confidence and resilience. Join us as we embark on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and celebrate the stories of those who fearlessly embraced their authenticity on the path to pageant success. I'm Lila Sherry.
And I'm Rayanna Johnson. Welcome to Sash and Soul. Welcome back.
Sash and Soul, episode 18, I believe.
I think so. How are you, Lila? You are officially a has-been, as they say.
A has-been, a former, a forever, whatever you want to call it. It feels fine. People asked me that a lot the night that I gave up my title and we were at that reception, and I was just like, I'm good. I feel great. It went to a great person. It's going to be fine. It all works out. I mean, like I say, this title is for a year for a reason. It's not meant to be your whole life. And I'm excited to kind of find myself again because I ended Miss Wisconsin, but I also ended 10 years of competing. And I had a conversation with somebody and I was like, I don't know really what life is like without pageant competitions as a competitor. And that's kind of crazy when you think about it. So I'm really excited to just live life, slow down a little bit and have time to do all the things that I just never had time to do. This weekend is my first weekend with no plans in a year. So I'm so excited. I don't even know what I'm going to do, but it feels great.
That is awesome. And there's so much more of that to come. And you start to get used to it and really appreciate the downtimes and start to feel this ease in life a little bit more, that you don't always have to be pushing. You don't always have to be thriving or striving rather. So it's just nice. It's just nice to just relax a little bit. So I'm excited for you to do that this summer. And stay tuned, you guys, because we've got big announcements next week. Everybody keeps asking Lila, what's next? What's next? Well, she's been teasing it, and I'm excited. We're going to talk about it in the podcast next week.
Yeah, you'll see it on social media first, but there's a lot of kind of backstory involved. So yay, I'm so excited. But anyways, today is also a topic that I think is really important, which is not winning.
Yeah, and it also has to do with what's next. So that was a really good segue into our topic today. We want to talk about not winning and what do you do? Somebody just recently said, it was a client of mine, had said, we keep hearing only one of us will walk away with the crown, and we get that, but what happens with the rest of us? It's like, oh my gosh, we really need to dedicate more conversation to that and have a larger conversation about what does happen if you don't win. And I want to be really careful and intentional about not saying that you lost, because I don't really believe that anyone loses in pageants. It's either you win or you didn't win, but not winning doesn't mean that you lost. It's not like a basketball game or a football game or really any other type of sport where you would lose. It's just not the same thing to me. So I'm going to be really intentional about saying either you win or you didn't win the title.
Or I even want to take it one step farther and say, define what winning is to you, because there were a lot of competitions that I did that winning to me did not mean winning and taking home the title. I remember I competed at UNM Nationals when I was a teen, 4 years ago. And I knew that it probably, chances are great. If I won, great. But a national title, I was like, that probably isn't going to be in the cards for me this year. I was coming out of battling a lot of mental health that year and a lot of family issues that year. And my win was getting up on that freaking stage and being able to talk about my mom's story in an interview without crying. That was my win. So take it one step further and define what winning is for you before you even walk in there, because that to you is going to be did you or did you not win? And so we'll take it back to the winning and not saying we're losing. But I think we're just going to use that in the context of the title that people saw you competing for and not necessarily those personal wins that you're going to have for yourself too.
And I know that we are wrapping up competition season for, I mean, I know there's been a couple of national and international competitions this month. A lot of the MAO and USA state competitions are wrapping up here at the end of this month and early into July as well. So I know a lot of you, this is going to really hit home, but for those of you that are still competing and coming up on competition, Lila has a really important message that I'm going to echo about both prelim. So before we get into the context of what happens when you don't win, want to just give a little bit of time for prelim awards and going into the final night, because we were just talking about this with all of the Miss Wisconsin contestants last week.
Prelims don't matter. We have seen this time and time again. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Don't count yourself into the times that do count or the times that don't count. It just doesn't matter. I had so many girls that I talked to this past week at Miss Wisconsin where I was like, you guys, I do not wake up on my hardest days and say, oh, thank goodness I got that prelim award at Miss Wisconsin like 300 days ago. Like, this day is going to be great. I have never once felt that way, or really about the title, right? Like, it was an honor and I was grateful many days this past year for the title. But at the same time, like, that didn't get me through the hardest times, and neither will a prelim award. And scholarships are great. And I think that's important to remember that, like, that does come with it, and that is important to a lot of women. But also, that's not necessarily every woman's goal with that either. So yeah, prelim awards don't matter,
Yeah.
nor, I mean, go ahead.
So I don't know if you remember this, but last year after you won your prelim award, do you remember me telling you to hand that like plaque to your mother and not think about it for the rest of the week?
Well, Ray, it is still with Shanita, my local director.
Love it.
She still has it. And I sent her a picture of her daughter, who's a sweet little toddler, like biting on the plaque the night that I won. Like, she was playing with that thing and she still has it. And I don't think about it. I really don't. So yeah, to take it one step farther, I never got it back and I never needed it.
Winning a prelim award could boost your confidence. It shouldn't boost your ego. And not winning a prelim award could tear apart your confidence. So we just don't want to focus that much on prelim awards. It's really fun and enjoy that in the moment and celebrate with those that are there to support you. It is a great honor. It comes with scholarship money most of the time. But I got that advice and actually rule from my coach when I was competing. If you win a prelim award, celebrate, take pictures, but then by the end of the night, you hand that off to your mom, have her
Frisbee
take it
it.
to her hotel room and or anybody else, and don't think about it, because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, consistency is more important than preliminary awards. They do not actually determine the outcome, and I can say that firsthand. I was a double prelim award winner back in 2010, I believe it was, and I didn't even make top 5.
Mhm.
And that was an eye opener for me. And that experience of not winning that year after winning 2 preliminary awards is actually going to come into play later on in this conversation as well, from what I learned about it. And I know, Lila, you had experiences at Miss America as well, because as you all know, if you follow closely, there were some prelim award winners at Miss America that didn't make finals. And that can be really painful. So Lila's going to dive in a little bit more about like respecting competitors later on in this conversation too. But I think the other piece of key information that we want to say before moving on is we often hear like it's already written in stone or in the stars, or it's in God's plan whether you win or you don't win. And for some of you, I would believe that would probably bring you a lot of comfort, and I love that for those of you that it brings comfort to. For others, that might not be comforting at all. For me, I don't necessarily find comfort in that, because I do feel like free will is a huge factor in the outcome. And I really do believe in creating my own reality. God's plan for me is not as specific as I think we talk about it being in his plan or not in his plan for me to win or not win. So I just want to also mention that, because what Lila said is don't count yourself out.
Yeah.
Prelims are done. We go into final night. Mentally prepare yourself to compete at your highest level. And if you don't make finals, then you'll deal with the sadness and the disappointment and the emotion then, but don't be disappointed in something that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it was always kind of and this is a very vulnerable place to be for me to say this, but hearing people say like it's in God's plan already, it's already been written, me, and this might be something that I need to work on, but immediately it's like, well, then that probably means that I don't have a chance, or that probably means that I don't need to worry about, being in top five or whatever. And like, that's where my head went. And that's not necessarily the truth. And I know what people mean when they say that it's already written, how it should be. But I think a better way to talk about it is what's meant to happen will happen. Whoever is meant to have this year will have this year. I mean, in all transparency, my first runner up is the person that I crowned. It very well could have been her last year too. And so to me, that's a better way of looking at it. How you get there might be off, however we want to look at it. But I think that it's important to, like you said, don't give yourself reasons to count yourself out or to justify why you're not having fun or why you didn't put your all out there in the opening number, right? Like, this is a very niche conversation to be having, but I know it's important to both of us, and hopefully that it'll translate to some people that are listening as well that have heard that and maybe don't find comfort in it. So
Yeah. And I think if you really believe in that, if that does bring you comfort, then I hope that it's because when you hear it's in God's plan and you have faith in that, that you release any kind of pressure on yourself and you go out there and you just have a blast and you put your best foot forward. I really hope that that's what you feel behind that and
yeah,
not the opposite of like, oh, well, it's already in the plan. Like there's nothing I can do or can't like
right,
couldn't do right now
right,
to change that, which can be really defeating.
right,
And then for those of you that really believe in having a purpose and maybe don't find comfort in this whole concept of like it's written in the stars already, then listen to this other piece that we've just talked about of go in as if you are in the finals and pour everything you have into it. And if you don't make it for some reason, then deal with it then.
right.
But you're not going to feel better if you don't make it because you spent some time preparing yourself not to make it. That's just not how emotions work.
Exactly. Well said. Yeah. Yeah. And I will say I do look at the it's in God's plan a little bit differently now, but I'm speaking on behalf of the times where I felt that way, that it wasn't comforting. So
Yes,
anyways,
absolutely. Okay,
okay.
so let's dive into what happens when you don't win. For those of us that have experienced that, I've experienced it many, many times on many different levels within pageants. I know you have too, Lila.
Haven't we
Yeah.
all felt what it's like to be disappointed more than we take home the title? Like that's just how it is.
Yeah, for the most part, unless you're an enigma, like, title
Right.
holders that have, like in the Miss America organization that have won a local, won their state, then went on to win Miss America, and like one and done all across the board. Like, but that's an enigma. That usually does not happen.
Right.
So there's a few points that we're going to make in this conversation. I want to outline them for you. The first point that we want to talk about is how to handle not winning, you yourself personally. Number two is your followers are not disappointed in you if you don't reach your goals. I hear often that is a big concern or fear that you're going to disappoint someone. So we're going to talk about that. And then finally, and most importantly, and also kind of cliche, but absolutely worth mentioning, is that your worth, your worthiness is not defined by the outcome of a pageant competition. So those are the 3 points that we're really going to dive into today. So let's kick it off with how to handle not winning.
Well, as I told a lot of the girls after top 10 was announced this past week, feel it, feel gross, feel sad, feel disappointed. Let yourself have that moment, because what we don't want to happen is for you to bottle it up, say that you're fine, not actually fine. You're not actually telling people how you feel. Nobody's really there to help you because they think that you're fine. And then you fall apart in a place where it's probably not best for you, right? So feel the feels, but do it when it's appropriate. Not when you're on stage, not when you're around well, it could be around your family and friends, but not when you're in like a public coronation. feel the feels, but feel it when it's appropriate.
Yeah, Lila and I were talking about this episode yesterday and coming up with our bullet points. And the first thing that I wrote down after how to handle not winning is, girl, fix your face. Because here's the thing, if you don't meet your goals and you have to come back out on stage for a production number after the finals are called, or you come back out right before crowning and you're standing on stage during the crowning, it's your reputation on the line when your face is a mess because you're disappointed. But it's also you representing your family, you representing your community, and you representing whichever organization or title you may uphold at that moment. And if you've got something else deep going on, like you're mad at directors or you had a horrible experience, no one's going to know that.
Yep.
And all that's happening is that you are destroying your own reputation on that stage when your face is a mess or when it's clear that you have just been sobbing and can't pull it together. And I am the last person to ever say, shove it under the rug and don't feel it. But you have to think about how you're handling yourself then and there, fall apart later. And, like Lila said, like there is a time and a place for when you can and you should fall apart, but you have to really be mindful of your long-term reputation.
Two things. The pageant world is a small world. And when you have things like local competitions, you never know if a local judge just so happened to be in the audience that night and they might be judging you 6 months down the line, right? I'm not saying that like people, but I'm saying that this world is small. People see things, people see photos online. And leading into that, I cannot tell you how many times a woman is crowned and the biggest conversation that people are having is about the women's reactions behind her. I can't tell you how many times you are still on the stage, you are still in the photos, you are still under the spotlight in some way, shape, or form. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen that conversation of, oh my God, like, who was that in the back? These women are so supportive of this woman who just won. It had nothing to do with the girl who was getting crowned. Like the conversation had nothing to do with her. It was all about the women behind her. And I want to put this out there too. There was a picture that I saw on social media of a 2021 title holder that was getting crowned. And there were three women that just so happened to be in the line of vision of the photographer behind her, who ultimately ended up being the 2022 title holder, the 2023 title holder, and then I think like maybe the 2024 title holder. And they were all like kind of stacked in that line of vision. So excited and happy for the girl that was winning that year. You never know if that could be you. And that comes back to you not counting yourself out from the beginning because you have to remember who you were before you got on that stage. Like, remember who you are, you guys. Like, lift your head up. Remember who you are before you stepped on that stage, before five people's opinions decided the outcome of something during one night. And again, that sounds cliche, but just remember that you're still part of these conversations and you're still part of the vision of what people are seeing when somebody is being crowned. You are still a part of that moment. And that's a beautiful thing. So act accordingly.
As you're talking and as I'm like thinking about what we're talking about and also thinking about like you guys listening, I'm imagining you sitting here there thinking like, wait, Lila and Rihanna, I thought this was all about being fearlessly authentic. And what's fearlessly authentic about plastering a smile on your face when you're feeling terrible inside? And I'm like, yeah, that is kind of counter to what we've been talking about. Like, we want you to feel the feels, we want you to be authentic, and we want you to be real. But I guess my thought about that is if you are at a place where you feel so upset that you can't hold it together for a little while on stage and in public to uphold your reputation, there's a lot of work that you need to be doing on your own self-worth, on your own mental health, and on your big picture as to why you are there and recognizing what the little wins are and what your growth is. And like Lila just said, remember who you are. Remember who you were before you stepped on that stage. So it's not about like authenticity to me isn't about just like showing every yucky thing that has ever happened to you in the world. Like there's so many things in my life that I choose to be discreet about because I feel that I'm then being authentic to myself because I want to uphold my own reputation. Authenticity has a lot of different layers. It's not about being so transparent to the entire world. There is a level of being professionalism, censorship, diplomacy, all of these things that really do go into play when you're in that particular situation. And I want to remind you guys, nonverbal communication is 55% of communication effectiveness. So when you're standing on that stage and you've got a look on your face that it the audience is picking up on that. You didn't even say anything. We don't know what's going on in your head, but that look on your face truly does tell it all. So
Mhm.
fix your face. And that's that. Moving on.
Yeah, let's move on. Your followers or your
Mm.
support group, they still love you. You're not making anybody sad. You're not ruining anybody's day. And well, if you are a supporter, also we have an episode on how to best support women, which I also think is important because if your followers and your support group knows how to best support you, this is going to come a lot easier for you. But you're not letting anybody down.
And if someone is so butthurt about you not winning, then they've got some mindset stuff to work on, and or they do not belong in your circle at all because
Yep.
they're taking ownership of your success and perceived failures. Again, perceived, because I don't think there's any failure in this experience, just growth and just opportunity and just contrast that we all learn from. But if they are really, truly upset, they've got some work that they need to do on themselves, and they should not be counted into your inner circle or really anywhere near you or be titled as a supporter of you.
And I think this can be difficult for people to believe. I think when you're in the midst of competition, is like, well, how could I not be letting them down? My thing was always like, people drove from far away to be here. People bought tickets. People are using their time. They want to see me do well. But that's the thing, they want to see you do well because they want you to be happy. If you come off that stage and you're excited about whatever it is that just happened, you just competed. Like, take this as a celebration of all the hard work that you've done the past few months. If you're happy and celebrating when you walk off that stage, it doesn't matter what place you got, your support group's going to be like, heck yeah, like, let's go celebrate, right? My mom was always very intentional about seeing what my reaction or my emotion was coming off that stage, and she would match that. And she was always really good about that, and like she would just never care. Like, she knew too, because a lot of the times, you guys, parents and people that have been through this or just supporters in general understand that, hot take, this is not the biggest thing you will ever do. This is not the most important thing you will ever do, right? And they have a way of seeing that sometimes before you do because you're in the thick of it. So just trust that the people that should and do love you unconditionally, that unconditional part includes the outcome of a pageant.
I think it's easy to project our disappointment out as if other people are feeling just as disappointed. So when you're competing and you are in it, you alone have been experiencing this. You alone have been preparing for months, years for this opportunity. And when you are disappointed, it's easy to think that everyone around you is probably feeling the same thing. And it's just not the case. Your supporters, your family, your friends, your directors, they are not experiencing the same things as you. So don't project your disappointment onto other people and assume that they're feeling that disappointment too. And I think that also is really important for you to keep in mind that if you are thinking or assuming that people are going to be so disappointed in you, it's actually just a reflection of how you're feeling. It's not a reflection of how they are feeling. So you get to turn inward and do some work on that and give yourself grace and seek out the right type of support for you to kind of ease that sadness and the disappointment that unfortunately is just part of the process. If we always just felt amazing, I don't think that we would ever grow. And if there was always a guarantee that we were going to succeed and reach all of our goals, I don't think it would be as fun. Part of the fun is the growth and the journey. And you have to own kind of every piece of that, including the disappointments.
I just thought of this and I haven't really thought of this before, but I challenge you, if you don't believe us, the next time you compete and maybe you didn't get the title, walk off stage and ask your family or your support group, how do you guys feel?
Mm,
9 times out of 10, they're probably going to be like, we're so proud of you. We're so excited for you. That was so much fun to watch. We loved being here. Thanks for inviting us, or thanks for, letting us know when this was like, just, I don't know, test your group. Ask them how they're feeling. I feel like we forget to do that as competitors too, because they're all on us and all eyes are on us and they want us to feel supported. But like, I don't know, just ask them how they're feeling. And I think that'll prove a lot 9 times out of 10. I think that would be fun. So I just wanted to add that in. But I feel like this is just so self-explanatory. This is almost also like our pep talk to you whenever you need to hear this stuff too, because I know that a lot of us may be sitting here like, yeah, I know, right? Like I might be that listener that's like, yeah, I know. I know that they're not disappointed, but truly, whenever you need to hear this, like listen to it and listen to it again, because this is kind of our pep talk to you too.
yeah. My closing thoughts on your followers and not assuming that they're going to be horribly disappointed in you. This is something that I said to the class of Miss Wisconsin this last weekend. We had the opportunity as former Miss Wisconsins. We were just finishing up our little annual brunch. We had the opportunity to kind of step into rehearsal with all the contestants and chat with them. And one of the things that I said that I think is really, really important for everyone to hear is that no one is disappointed in you. No one feels bad for you. They care about you. I think that's really important for you all to remember is that because I heard it a few times last week is I just don't want people to feel bad for me. I don't want people to feel disappointed in me or disappointed for me. And the thing is you got to switch your perspective on that because people don't feel bad for you. They're not pitying you. They're not looking down upon you with, this pity and shame and
Right.
disappointment. They genuinely care about you and they care about your success and your well-being and your happiness. So if you can look at it as your supporters and your followers care about you, that completely flips the script on being concerned at all that they're going to be disappointed.
And this stems from, okay, last thing, and then I promise we're going to move on. And this stems from, I remember Maddie, Miss America, when we did our interview with her, and she was saying, I didn't want my family to treat me like a wounded animal. So I wasn't going to walk out there being all sad and crying. And I always think back to that because you also set the tone. You also get to decide how people react to you walking off that stage when you felt like you could have gotten something or didn't get something, or frankly, you just felt like it was exactly how it should be, right? You get to also set that tone. You have that ability to create that vibe. Sounds so silly, but what am I trying to say? That emotional energy that you have around those people. So take some ownership too in that you have the ability and the power to be able to be that person that sets the tone. That's what I'm trying to say. Sets the tone for how people treat you when you walk off that stage too.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, finally, and probably most importantly, and kind of encompasses everything we've talked about, is that your worth is not defined by the outcome.
That's
When,
it.
yeah, well, I was trying to think of what to say after this, and I think going back to 2010 when I was a double prelim winner and didn't make top five, I was crushed. I mean, I did all the things, smiled, I showed up to the reception, was announced on stage, like had a great time with my supporters because that year I had the most, like the biggest group at Miss Wisconsin because I was Miss Lacrosse Oktoberfest and it comes with this whole big like royal family as part of the Oktoberfest festival, all these things. So I had a bunch of people there and wanted to make sure that I was still having a good time and being appreciative of them being there to support me. Um, and I fell apart later that night with my director. And then we both fell apart and cried on the way home the next day because I was fortunate enough to ride with her. So I could, spend 3 hours of debriefing with her. And by the time I got home, I had gained so many new perspectives and an understanding of myself and how I showed up that year at Miss Wisconsin. And I recognized that I didn't show up in the way that I I didn't show up as myself. I wasn't truly myself. And I had a lot of mindset glitches going in. I did a lot of comparison. I did a lot of like trying to puff up and boost my own ego. And lo and behold, I talked to one of the judges later and he was like, yeah, he's like, I loved you. You know, I think everything was fine. But the other judges kind of said there was something about you in an interview that made it seem like maybe you wouldn't be easy to work with. And that was another eye opener for me too, of like, oh, like, yeah, that makes sense because I just wasn't in my best state of mind. So of course that would come across that way. So I think recognizing that like my worthiness as a human being, to me, that just looks like an opportunity to continue living and learning and growing and expanding in my character, my personality, and being able to continually find things and ways to give back, that a crown on my head doesn't define that for me, that it's my own character that I need to pay more attention to. So that was my big one. I also had a lot of work to do on myself after Miss America because I went through all of these things of, you know, feeling like I had disappointed everyone, being disappointed in myself, feeling like I failed, and just really struggled with my self-worth. And in hindsight, I mean, there's so much that I gained from that experience. You guys, I'm going for our 10-year class anniversary trip in
Oh,
Colorado in September. Like, paying the deposits on that, getting
yay.
super excited to see like half of my class, I think at least is going to be there. So there's just so much more to it than the crown and the title. And I think if you can just look at your worth separate from the outcome, you'll empower yourself that much more to continue growing and to continue thriving and achieving greater things.
None of the wins that happened in my life, and I'm not saying pageant wins, I'm saying scholarships that I got through school, getting into the journalism school, getting certain jobs or certain internships or quitting certain jobs, all of these wins that throughout my life to me that I look back on that I'm grateful for would not have happened if it were not for a situation that felt icky in the moment, or I felt like I was losing, or I felt like I didn't do something right. Because, as cliche as it sounds, I feel like that's all we're saying, but as cliche as it sounds, you don't get these top of the world feeling moments when you don't know what it's like to be at the bottom of the mountain. Like nobody just teleports up there. And I know that it's really difficult when you're feeling in a place of like, I feel like I'm just so disappointed in myself and I feel like I just lost. I know we don't like to say that, but I felt that way before. Know that those are the most shaping moments of your life, and you will look back and be really proud of those moments. I never talk about in speeches, or I gave a commencement speech at my high school. I went through all these things that I was really proud of and like, yay, applause. And then I was like, but none of those would have been possible, nor would they have happened, nor would I have had the insight, the grit, the motivation, the power, or the want to do all of these things if I didn't know what it felt like to feel defeated or disappointed in something. That's not to say that it makes the disappointment easier because it sucks. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It does feel crappy, but trust yourself in knowing that you have the power to shape something bigger out of it. Like you are not defined as much as you're not defined by the outcome winning, you're also not defined by the outcome losing. I think that people don't put it both ways a lot of the times too. Like I was not defined by the Miss Wisconsin title either. I, I came out of it like secrets out. I still have the same wardrobe. I still have the same friends. I still have the same family. I still live in the same apartment. Like none of that changed. I wasn't defined by that either. So know that there is going to be difficult moments, but also please give yourself the power that you are as a human to be able to like shape something really beautiful out of it if you want to, right? If you want to be somebody that decides that this does not define me, you can do that. And everybody has the power and the capability to do that. The people that win the biggest awards, the biggest accomplishments will never say that they got there without any sort of struggle or defeat or disappointment. So again, as cliche as it sounds, it really is part of the journey. And a lot of the times, sometimes I use humor to cope with things. And sometimes some of the hardest parts of my life, I would tell myself, well, this is going to be great for the book. This is going to be a great story to tell one day. And if that helps you in some way in realizing that no good book, no good story is ever complete without some sort of struggle or defeat. I hope that helps, and I hope that makes a little bit of sense too, because you are more powerful than you think you are.
And I think it's all about perspective as well. And you've heard me talk about like, don't focus on the crap in the corner. It doesn't mean the crap in the corner doesn't exist.
Mm.
Doesn't mean that you aren't disappointed or aren't frustrated with certain aspects of your performance or whatever, but you could focus on that and feel crappy about it, or you could focus on the little wins and things that you got out of the experience and feel amazing. I think it's also really important to note that those judges sitting in front of you the entire time that you're on stage and the entire time you're in interview, they're not judging you. They're not putting numbers down on the score sheet based on what they think your worth is or your
Mm.
worthiness. They are making split-second decisions based on your performance. Your performance does not define your worth. And that's all it is. Competition in pageants is a whole sequence and series of individual performances. We talk about being consistent, and that's important, but your interview is one performance. Your introduction on stage is one performance. Your onstage question is a performance. Your talent is one performance. They're each judged individually. And at no point are the judges looking at you and being like, is she worthy of this? Is she a worthy human being? That's just not a thought that people of sound mind and humane intellect think. That's just not it. You guys, they are judging you and scoring you based on your performance, not on your worth as a human being. So disconnect the two.
Ah, great point. Judges want to see you do well. They're also rooting for you too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so true. I mean, if you're at that level, if you're on that stage, then you're capable of doing the job. It's not worthiness of doing the job, it's capability of doing the job. And it's not worthiness of, you know, winning. It's just how the scores come together and how 5 to 7 around that. I mean, however many judges you have in your competition, like what they think in the moment. And it's based on their unique preferences and lived experience and the way they connect with you or don't connect with you. Like that's truly what it comes down to, not your worthiness as a human being.
Mm. And then, kind of to end this out, is how many times do you have, like, I just think about some of my favorite title holders that I've seen, or some of my favorite competitors that I've seen. They didn't become Miss America, or they didn't become Miss New York, or they didn't become Miss whatever. And I still loved them for who they were. I still followed them long after they were done competing because of who they were. And I follow a lot of them more than I do some of the biggest names in pageantry because I feel like I know them and I feel like I connect with them. So just think about a lot of the people that you know, so dearly follow because you think that they're great people and then just so happen to be Miss Wisconsin or Miss Minnesota or Miss California and they didn't become Miss America. Did you look at them any less? Probably not. So think about those people too that and hold yourself to that same standard too. You know, don't have that double standard for the people that you look up to and change it around because it's you. Love yourself the same.
The golden rule: if you wouldn't say it to your best friend, don't say it to yourself.
Mm. Yep.
All right. Whew.
Oh, I feel like we just spitfired a lot of that.
You know, honestly, I think we could go on and on and on about this. Like, we have so much more that we could say about, you know, how to handle not reaching your goals, how to handle not winning if that's your goal, or not placing in top 10, whatever your goal is. Like, there's so much more that we could say about this. And I think both of our intentions was just to pour our hearts into this episode and place ourselves back in those situations where we didn't reach our goals so that we could have the most compassion and empathy for you, because it is not easy.
Yeah.
It is not easy, but the most growth happens during times of difficulty. So, with that said, stay well and stay tuned for next week because we'll have lots more exciting conversation next week about next steps for Lila.
Yay! We're proud of you. We're proud of you all. I saw how the women were this past week. A lot of the feedback was that everybody was really supportive and felt loved. And that to me is the most important part of all of this. So I see you. I see the women behind the scenes, the ones backstage. I'm proud of you all just as much as I am proud of our next Miss Wisconsin. So I'll end it there.
Ditto. Well said. I echo all of that. All right,
Okay.
guys. Take care of yourselves. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
If you aspire to be as confident and accomplished as the women we talk to on this show, then this exclusive opportunity is tailor-made for you. I'm offering a complimentary, fearlessly authentic coaching consultation designed specifically for women like yourself. Have you ever compared yourself to others or worried you're not good enough? Do you get nervous about public speaking and always second guess the things you've said? I've been there myself and have helped countless women conquer their private interview and onstage question, feel confident on and off stage, showcase their authenticity and purpose, and ultimately win the title of their dreams. In the Fearlessly Authentic Coaching Program, you will develop award-winning interview skills, transform your platform, become a public speaking expert, overcome self-doubt, comparison, and imposter syndrome, and be 100% prepared to not only win, but to succeed with your dream title, whether that's local, state, national, or even global. Don't let doubt or hesitation hold you back any longer. Take the first step toward your success and sign up for your complimentary, no obligation coaching consultation today. Simply visit fearlesslyauthenticoach.com/consultation and reserve your spot. Remember, your journey to greatness begins with a single decision. Join the ranks of empowered women who dare to be fearlessly authentic. Thank you so much for listening, and here's to the confident, unstoppable you.